Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. We've got an absolutely packed show for you guys tonight. Unfortunately, we have not one but two Cowboys topics. I apologize for that, but they're two relevant topics in regards to the Cowboys' Super Bowl contention for two different reasons. I'll discuss that, as well as Steph Curry, my man. He's out for a little while, folks. I'm going to lead the show off with that. Also, we got Niners Seahawks tonight. I'll predict that game at the end of today's show, and why the Packers have got to just start Jordan Love the rest of the season. They're 5-8, and my thing is, do they have a plan? I'll discuss that later on in the show today. But first, let's get right to Steph Curry. According to Shams Charania, who tweeted, I'd say about an hour ago, about the situation. First of all, Steph Curry did suffer a left shoulder injury during the game last night against the Indiana Pacers. Not to mention, by the way, it really sucked because the Warriors trailed 25 points in that game to the young Pacers. And Steph went on this big, massive third quarter run. The Warriors did, rather. And at the time Steph got injured, keep in mind, folks, this is third quarter. He had 38 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. He was on triple-double alert. Matter of fact, I'm not so sure he wasn't on 50-point triple-double alert. But according to Shams Charania, Golden State Warriors All-NBA star Stephen Curry has sustained a labral injury in his left shoulder and will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. So, Steph's out for a little while. What does this mean for the Warriors, who now today sit at 14-15? Well, first of all, a big problem even before the Steph injury is that at home, my Warriors have looked like the best team in basketball. They've been 12-2, which is tied for the best home record in the NBA. On the road, folks, they've been abysmal. 2-13, which is very uncharacteristic considering the fact that the Warriors, for the really entire run here of the dynasty for the last 8-9 years, it's been about winning big road games. I think they've won like 28, 29 straight playoff series where they've won at least one road game. It's remarkable. It's remarkable. And so Steph's out a little while. What does this mean for Golden State? Well, first of all, Kevin Durant left in 2019. Since that point, when the Warriors do not have Steph Curry, we got a 90-game sample size here in the last 3 years. 90 games that Steph Curry hasn't played. It's a little bit of a skewed number because the majority of those 90 games, Steph missed in the 2019-20 season because he broke his hand and only played 5 games that year. But be that as it may, 90 games. The Golden State Warriors record is 24-66. Not promising. So, at this point for Golden State, it's going to be about surviving without Steph Curry. Not to mention, it doesn't help the fact that they're on a pretty long East Coast road trip, their longest road trip of the season. They just lost to the Milwaukee Bucks and to the Indiana Pacers in back-to-back night. They got to go to Philly tomorrow to play the 76ers, go to Toronto on Sunday to play the Raptors, and then back-to-back nights in New York against the Knicks and the Nets before they come home for that big Christmas Day matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies, which unfortunately, because of the Steph injury, has a little bit of sizzle taken out of it, if you will. But Golden State today in the Western Conference sits at 10th, at 14-15. Incredibly, they're only 5 games back of the 1 seed. So it's December. They still could get it because if you compare it to the Eastern Conference, between the 1 seed Boston and the 10 seed Toronto, there's an 8.5 game difference. In the Western Conference, it's a 5 game difference between the Pelicans and the Grizzlies, who both have a 18-9 record, and the Warriors, 5 game difference. So in the immediate, Golden State is not going to be playing good basketball for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long Steph Curry's out. He probably played his last game in the calendar year 2022. But if you are asking me if I'm concerned about whether or not this injury will affect a potential championship run, I'm not concerned in the slightest. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, Golden State has been bad defensively this season. If you follow me on Twitter, please, by the way, if you wouldn't mind if you guys follow me on Twitter at Carving It Up Pod. But if you guys follow me on Twitter, you know I live tweet during a lot of these Warriors games. And especially early in the season, I went on these big, long rants about how bad the defense has been. The fouling, the lack of communication on pick and roll. Like, it's frustrating to watch considering how great they've been ever since Steve Kerr took over as head coach in this 8-year run. But think about this. Golden State, and I've given the stat a lot, when Draymond Green went down last season and missed 2 months. And we didn't give Draymond Green enough credit. I don't think we've ever given Draymond Green enough credit for how important he is to the Warriors. He's huge. He runs everything, offensively and defensively. And when Draymond was healthy last season, the Golden State Warriors were the best defense in the NBA since the 2007 Spurs, who swept the Cavs in the NBA Finals. Without him, middle of the pack, 13th, 14th ranked defense in basketball. And so it's confusing this year. You obviously got Draymond. Klay is no shabby defender. Andrew Wiggins is an excellent perimeter defender. Jonathan Kuminga, who, by the way, has really come on as of late, is a very good perimeter defender. They've got bodies to throw around at some of these really talented wing guys. By the way, Kevon Looney is strong down low and a good wing defender himself. So why have the Golden State Warriors been so bad defensively? I think the answer is quite simple. A little bit of a championship hangover. When you're battling it out for 2 months, from April to June, playing all these teams with great wing players, you think about the second round, Ja Morant. You think about the Western Conference Finals, it was Luka Doncic. In the NBA Finals, it was Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That takes a lot on your body, and then you come back 4 months later in October when you go from NBA Finals where everything's on the line to October where pretty much nothing's on the line. Now you can say, well, it's December. But I'd also argue is Golden State can't get back on their feet the way they used to back earlier in the dynasty because of a simple thing that gets all of us at some point in time. It's called father time. Age gets us. Am I saying that Steph is declining? Absolutely not. I mean, guy's averaging, 32 a night? I mean, he's having one of the best, if not the best season of his career. Steph is not declining. Klay is averaging 25 in the month of December. Like, Klay's back. Like, I was worried about Klay to start the season. I'm not worried about Klay anymore. Draymond, and I know a lot of, StatMuse, and I love StatMuse. Like, that's where I get a lot of my numbers. But StatMuse, everybody's talking about, 1.3 rebounds to assists. Draymond's going to give you nights like that. But he's also going to give you nights where it's 12, 9, and 11. And he's everywhere on both sides of the floor. Getting the Splash Brothers good shots in the offensive end and controlling everything communication-wise on the defensive end. So age, I think, plays a factor into this. So Golden State is going to struggle all of the duration of Steph Curry's absence. But again, I don't think it hurts them long, simply because the second reason, who scares you in the Western Conference? I'm serious. Who scares you in the Western Conference? Out East, different story. You got Boston. Oh my, you see those Celtics? See what Jason Tatum did to the Lakers the other night? 44 points. Jason Tatum's probably the front runner for MVP right now. The Bucks, yeah, they have this guy named Giannis. Maybe you've heard of him. Chris Middleton's back and playing well, and they're about to get Drew Holiday back. That roster is stacked. I predicted before the season they get to the finals and meet my Warriors. Not to mention, you guys know I'm not very high on this team. Y'all been paying attention to the Brooklyn Nets lately? They're playing outstanding basketball on both ends of the floor. Kevin Durant's playing out of his mind. Kyrie Irving is doing his thing. Ben Simmons is in and out of the lineup, but the bench has been great. Nick Claxton and company. Like, Brooklyn's a real team so far. I'm not sure in the long run if they will be, but right now, it is Kevin Durant. Well, he's top 5 player in the world. Let's not underestimate that. Out west, either young teams or teams Golden State just flat out has the number of, or players in some instances. So if the playoffs started today, Golden State would be the 10 seed that have to obviously win 2 playing games. I'd have all the confidence in the world that the Warriors could do that. So let's just put the Warriors in as the 8 seed. They played the New Orleans Pelicans in round 1. Now, I told you about those Pelicans. They were coming, right? Zion Williamson was going to wreak havoc on the league this season if he stayed healthy. For the most part, he has, and he's been unbelievable. He's averaging like 25 points a game. He's looked unbelievable and has been efficient as you could be. CJ McCollum's playing well. You got Alvarez. You got really good pieces. Larry Nance. But it's still a very, very young team. They pushed Phoenix last year, but it's a young team. You're going to give Golden State the edge in that series. In the second round, they'd face either the Portland Trailblazers or the Phoenix Suns. Little fun fact here, Steph Curry has never lost a playoff game to the Portland Trailblazers. He's 10-0. He's never lost. And like Damian Lillard, who's playing out of his mind as of late, you guys know I love Damian Lillard. He's probably one of my 3 or 4 favorite players in basketball, but Steph Curry kind of owns them in the playoffs. He's 10-0 against them. Or you play Phoenix, who the last 2 years has blown 2-0 leads in best-of-7 series. In 2021, the NBA Finals against the Milwaukee Bucks. Last year, second round against the Dallas Mavericks. You're telling me you would take either of those teams over Golden State? By the way, not to mention Portland is very young, and Phoenix has some older players. I'd take Golden State. And then in the Western Conference Finals, in all likelihood, you would take on the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Memphis to me is the biggest threat to Golden State out west, without a question. However, they played last year in the second round. Golden State, Memphis, they played each other, right? Went 6 games, Golden State won in 6. 4 of those 6 games came down to like the last 5 minutes, so crunch time. You need big players make big plays in big games. Golden State won 3 out of the 4 close games. Why is that? Execution and experience. They've been here before. There's nothing in this run that Golden State has not seen. They've seen everything. They've blown a 3-1 lead. They've come back from a 3-1 lead. They've gotten all the injury breaks. They've had the injury breaks go for their opponent. They've seen everything. They played with Kevin Durant, without Kevin Durant. In 1 year, they played with Steph Curry, without Steph Curry. They play without guys like Draymond at times or Clay. They've seen everything. They beat Memphis. Now, today, Milwaukee would beat them in a 7-game series. Boston, I'm not so certain after we saw Saturday night and the problems that Golden State and not Andrew Wiggins, he didn't play, but all the wing defenders for the Warriors, Draymond, Clay, Kuminga, gave Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Still think there's a little bit of psychological hurdle that the Celtics got to overcome in order to beat Golden State, should they meet again in June. But in the long run, no, I'm not concerned about the Warriors. Like this is one of those years in the Western Conference where anybody could win it. Anybody. Like Golden State could be 8 seed and get to the NBA Finals. I truly believe that. I don't think they will be the 8 seed. I don't think they'll have to participate in the play-in tournament. But if they had to, I think they get to the finals, as long as they're healthy. Like if Steph were going to have to miss a significant amount of time, I want it to be right now in December, not in April or May. Because if it happens in April or May, forget about it. Golden State's not going back-to-back. So in short term, yeah, of course I'm concerned about the Warriors. I do not anticipate seeing good basketball over the next 2.5, 3 weeks. But in the long run, no, I'm not concerned whatsoever. This is a team that's won 4 of the last 8 NBA championships. They got the best player in the world, Steph Curry. Klay Thompson is playing great right now. Draymond, we know he's up and down the regular season, but he always gives you his best when his best is required, and that's the playoffs. Honestly, and I was talking to Barry Grant Jr., the All Even podcast. Shout out to him earlier today. And who's to say that they shouldn't, a team they played last night, the Indiana Pacers, who's to say that they shouldn't go to the Pacers and say, hey, we will give you, Jonathan Kuminga aside, we will give you some of all of our young players. We're talking Wiseman. We're talking Moody. We're talking guys like, even the young guys like Ryan Rollins, Patrick Baldwin Jr., like rookies. We'll get, because Indiana's in a rebuild. You got a lot of 20-year-olds in there. We will send you that whole package. If you want Jordan Poole, maybe we'll give you a Jordan Poole, especially the way he's playing as of late. Not good. We'll give you that package from Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. Because, we've talked since the offseason about, hey, the Lakers need to trade Westbrook and those 2 first-round picks, which are, I think the first one's in like 2027 for Hield and Turner. How does that package compare to what the Warriors have to offer? The Warriors have all kinds of draft picks and assets. So if you were to acquire Miles Turner and a Buddy Hield, gives you shooting, gives you defense, and it strengthens your bench, here you go. Because part of the reason the Warriors have struggled a lot, they're missing 2 veterans, Otto Porter Jr., Gary Payton Jr., or Gary Payton II, excuse me. Gary Payton went to the Portland Trailblazers. Otto Porter went to the Toronto Raptors. Got to have veterans. I was wrong about the Warriors in that I thought that the young guys would step up. Outside of Jonathan Kuminga, none of them really have. Jordan Poole's taken a step back after getting his money. So we'll see how it happens down the road for my Warriors. But in the long run, I have no reason to be concerned. They'll get the defense right because it's a Steve Kerr coach team, and Steve Kerr coach teams always place in the top 10 defensively. that they'll be fine. I have no worries whatsoever about this Golden State Warriors team. But it's been an odd start to the NBA season. Like out east, it looks for the most part what we thought it looked like. We knew Boston was going to be good. We knew Milwaukee was going to be good. I certainly knew that Cleveland was going to be good, given the addition of Donovan Mitchell, those other guys, stepping up in bigger roles, guys like Jared Allen, Darius Garland. But, you look out in the Western Conference, who on earth would have saw the Portland Trailblazers as the 4 seed? Or, to me, the shock of the West, the Sacramento Kings as the 7 seed. Though, maybe I shouldn't be all that shocked because another Steve Kerr, former assistant, Mike Brown, is crushing it. I love Mike Brown. I know we've had certain people call him Mr. Potato Head, which is extremely disrespectful. But the defensive mentality he's brought to those Kings, being able to, it's one thing to draft young talent. It's quite another to develop them. Mike Brown's done just that. Like this Sacramento Kings team, they're pretty good. I mean, they're 3 games back of the 1 seed. I know it's December. I get that. Still got a lot of basketball left to play. We're not even halfway through the season. But that's a real team that we need to be paying attention to. Not as a championship contender, but just a team to continue to develop and possibly make the playoffs. So, good for Mike Brown, good for the Kings, and listen, I can't wait to see what they look like down the road. It's going to be fun. But I think it's interesting when Boston is funny because these last few games, so they got smoked by my Warriors, which even I kind of didn't expect. I didn't see that coming. I was confident in my guys, obviously, because they're great at home. But I didn't see a 17-point win coming. Then they go to LA to play the Clippers, get destroyed, and then they play one of the weirdest games of the NBA season, albeit very exciting, against the Lakers. Obviously, the best rivalry in sports, best rivalry in the NBA, Celtics-Lakers. And Boston goes up by as many as 20. The Lakers come all the way back. It's a 32-point turnaround. They lead by 12 with 3 minutes left. Boston, in particular, Jason Tatum, who went crazy at the end of the fourth quarter, went and tied the game, and the Celtics won in overtime. So I think it's really funny just how these, with the 3-point shot, I think has changed everything in terms of these games being a lot. A 20-point lead in the third quarter is not safe. If you're playing any team worth their salt, they can come back from 20 in a 6-minute span. If you got the shooters, get out in transition, don't foul, get stops. A 20-point lead in 2022 is not what it was in 1992. Whole different ball game. So it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens. But oh gosh, I hate doing this. So we're gonna shift to the NFL. And let's talk a little Dallas Cowboys for the next 2 segments. Micah Parsons was on Von Miller's podcast the other day. And they had a really interesting conversation talking about MVPs. And Micah Parsons was talking about, I don't know why so many quarterbacks talk about this as MVPs. And as a matter of fact, in that same sort of, in that same soundbite, in that same podcast, Micah was talking about, we go crazy when Brock Purdy has one big game. We're anointing him as this new great franchise quarterback. It's like, bro, it's one game. Which, by the way, listen, I agree. Like, you guys know I like Brock Purdy, but to anoint the kid as a franchise quarterback after one game, let's pump the brakes a little bit. He does have some incredible pieces around him, and that's why I think he was going to succeed. But Micah, to say the very least, took a shot at Jalen Hurts, quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. So he said, quote, talking about Jalen Hurts when they were talking about the MVP discussion. He said, quote, "Is it Hurts or the team?" And Von Miller basically gave the Eagles' 12-1 record to both sides. He gave it to the defense and the supporting cast and to Jalen Hurts. Micah Parsons says, quote, "It's the system and team. I'm not trying to make no enemies. I just love the game so much and I understand it so much that when things are off, I just can't hold it in. I've almost got to say something." So essentially what Micah Parsons is saying is that Jalen Hurts is only good is only good, is only in the MVP discussion solely because of the supporting cast around him. We got to stop with this, folks. I'll get to Micah and the whole situation because the Cowboys play the Eagles in today's Thursday, 9 days on Christmas Eve. Like it's coming soon. I'll discuss Micah and Jalen in just a second. We got to stop with this, though. That when a team is loaded, the quarterback is playing well, they're winning a lot of games. Well, it's because of a team. First of all, last I checked, could be wrong on this. I'm an amateur, but football is a team game last time I checked. There's not a whole lot of Super Bowl winning teams that were amazing at quarterback and sucked just about everywhere else. I don't know if there's any of those, to be totally honest with you. And so, Josh Allen has a stacked roster. Patrick Mahomes has Travis Kelce. Aaron Rodgers the last 2 years had Devontae Adams. Okay? You look at other teams like, the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase is paired with Joe Burrow. Like, we can't just say Jalen Hurts is good just because they added A.J. Brown. Does it help? Heck yeah, it helps. A.J. Brown's a top 10 receiver in the NFL, and he's had a arguably the best year of his career, if you look at his numbers. But the notion that Jalen Hurts is only good, or is only in the MVP discussion solely because of his teammates. And obviously, he has a great defense. I think they're number 2 overall in defense as it pertains to takeaways, points allowed, yards given up, things of that nature. Like the Eagles have a tremendous defense. Offensively, of course, as I mentioned, they have A.J. Brown. They have Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins. Dallas Goedert, who's a good tight end, and probably the best offensive line in football. But what people fail to realize sometimes is that A.J. Brown is great. Let's not take anything away from him. And Devontae Smith is a very good player. Somebody's got to get them the ball. They can separate all they want, but somebody's got to deliver them the ball accurately. Somebody's going to make those big-time throws, take those big shots down the field, stretch the defense, and make those plays. And no one's really done that much better than Jalen Hurts. Again, this season, he is 4th in QBR. He is tied for 5th in touchdown passes. He's got fewer interceptions than anybody in the National Football League with 3. He's top 10 in passing yards. He's got a 68% completion percentage after having a 62% completion percentage a year ago. He's thrown for 3,100 yards. He's also 1st in the NFL in rushing yards for a quarterback. And I think I read it the other day, he's 3rd in rushing first downs. Jalen Hurts is not a running back. He's 3rd in rushing first downs in the NFL. He's pretty good. Just go on and saying that. And when you look at his improvement, and I talked about this on Monday's show, it's very similar to the likes of Josh Allen and even in some cases Lamar Jackson, where if you look at them from their rookie year to now, it's night and day. Jalen Hurts wasn't that accurate. He turned the ball over a lot. He was a little gun shy in the pocket. Now, he's comfortable. He moves around well. He's deadly accurate. He can push the ball down the field. He doesn't turn the ball over. Not to mention he's very coachable. His teammates love him. I don't know what there is to criticize. But to Micah's part. First of all, it's funny that Micah is talking about a guy who vastly outplayed him the last time they met in Philadelphia. As a matter of fact, the Philadelphia Eagles attacked Micah Parsons because we know he is a generational talent in terms of being a pass rusher. In terms of his speed, getting from sideline to sideline, Micah Parsons is one of the best talents in the National Football League, without a shadow of a doubt. But he does have a weakness. Not good at stopping the run. Like they use his speed and his aggressiveness against him. That's what the Eagles did. They used a lot of rollout passes, play action rollout pass with Hurts and with A.J. Brown. And Micah Parsons was kind of in no man's land. He had to make a decision. They went after him. But I've always had a rule on my show, literally, I'm not kidding, folks, since the 2nd episode of Carving It Up 3 years ago, that when you call out a guy, especially if you're about to play them, if you either guarantee a win or you take a massive shot at your opponent soon before you're about to face off with them, I have absolutely no issue with it whatsoever. None. So long as you go back it up and win. If you don't, we got an issue. And I've got numerous examples of this. I can think of one off the top of my head from about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, where Dabo Swinney, Clemson was taking on Ohio State in the college football playoff in the semifinal game. And Dabo Swinney, it was the COVID year, right? Ohio State only played like 6 games, but they got in because they were clearly one of the best 4 teams in the country. But Dabo Swinney said out loud, I did not vote for Ohio State to be in my top 10, much less the top 4. I said, oh gosh, you better be careful with that, Dabo. Don't give them bulletin board material. What happened? Justin Fields and Ohio State just ran all over Clemson. I mean, it wasn't even close. Jalen Hurts is kind of a silent assassin, if you will. He's very quiet, very unassuming. Great guy off the field. He's never going to say anything controversial. Again, like Jalen Hurts is one of those guys. He's everything you could possibly want in a franchise quarterback. Everything. On the field and off the field. But he takes notes. And Jalen Hurts, if we know anything about him, going back to his days in Alabama and Oklahoma and now with the Philadelphia Eagles, he's a grinder. Like, dude works his behind off. And you add a little fuel to that fire, careful if you're Micah Parsons. And part of what bothers me about this, and the Eagles left tackle sort of called this out, and I think accurately, that Micah Parsons talking about Jalen Hurts. They don't play Jalen Hurts this weekend. They play him next weekend. Play the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. How about you worry about the Jaguars? Because they should be at the front of your mind. Because if you lose to Jacksonville, that game against Philadelphia is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Dallas still doesn't control their own destiny to win the East, even if they beat Jacksonville and Philadelphia does what they're supposed to do against the Chicago Bears. But you give yourself a punching chance if you beat Philadelphia on Christmas Eve. You lose Sunday, forget about it. You're done. You're not winning the NFC East, and you're not getting the number 1 seed. So that's always been, it bothers me when we try to take credit away from great players just because they're surrounded with great talent. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, the Heatles back of the early 2010s, LeBron, D. Wade, Bosh. Does anybody who, is in the right mind think that, oh, okay, is LeBron really the MVP? Or he's got Dwayne Wade and he's got Chris Bosh and Ray Allen and guys, come on now. Is Jalen Hurts really that good? I mean, think about so many teams. Think about like the Cleveland Browns last year, where they've got a great offensive line, got great receivers, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, David Njoku. They got a great defense led by Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. Great coach, Kevin Stefanski. And they won 6 games because Baker Mayfield was their quarterback. Give credit to Jalen Hurts where it's due. I'm hesitant on him being the MVP because I think Mahomes is doing more with less. But I got no issue with Jalen Hurts winning the MVP. I don't think it's comparable like Nikola Jokic winning back-to-back years with the Denver Nuggets. I thought that was absurd. I wouldn't have an issue with Jalen Hurts winning this year's MVP. He's absolutely done enough to put himself in that discussion, in that conversation. And for Micah Parsons to discredit that, okay, show me next Saturday. Because if you don't, this is going to come back to bite you. Because what you're noticing with the Philadelphia Eagles, outside of their left tackle, they haven't said anything about this. And last point, before I get to because I see I got comments here, and I'll get to those in just a second. But what I love about this is Micah Parsons came out recently and walked back those comments. He said, man, I ain't trying to disrespect nobody. Jalen's a great player. It's like, you knew the statement you were making. Might as well stand on it. If you like that, stand on that. Like, it almost makes you question Micah Parsons in some way. He's a great player. I'm not even questioning that for a second. He's one of the 10 best players in the National Football League. This isn't like a backup saying this. But if you're going to make a statement like that, I need you to stand on it. I need you to double, triple, quadruple down on it. That is unless you understand the mistake you made. So we'll see. Alexander Johnson from the Dallas Cowboys Can Fan Podcast says, crack 'em, son. Love those guys, my grid teammates, Dallas Cowboys Can Fan Podcast. Please go check them out. John Rivera, Fan Perspective Podcast. He says, Hurts is my leader for MVP. And Lord knows he certainly has a great case for it. There's no question about it. Again, when you talk about, again, not just throwing the football, but running the football. There's no question about it. And even Alexander Johnson, who, again, big Cowboys fan. Jalen has been improving his play each game. Hard to count him out, and I hate Philly. I mean, Alex and everybody else watching or listening who know, I am no longer a Dallas Cowboys fan, and I still don't like the Philadelphia Eagles. But listen, at some point, what does your eye test tell you? And Micah, of all people, should know this. Micah spends hours upon hours upon hours every week watching tape, watching film, a lot more than we do. I mean, surely he sees what we're seeing. I mean, in this notion, well, the coach are putting him in the best position to succeed. Isn't that kind of what they're supposed to do? Playing to his strengths? Heck, the Denver Broncos and John Fox did this with Tim Tebow back in 2011. Okay, and obviously Tim Tebow's massive limitations came back to hurt them later on, which is why they moved on from him in favor of Peyton Manning. But you got to play the guy's strengths. Don't make it harder on him. Like that's the markings of a great coach or a great coaching staff is you make the game simple and you make it easy as possible. Nothing's easy in the NFL, but as easy as possible for your players. John says, you're not a Cowboys fan? No, I'm not a Cowboys fan. John? No, I sold my fan card like year and a half, 2 years ago with the whole the Dak Prescott contract situation because everybody knows I've been a Dak fan before he was a Cowboy. Not a Mississippi State fan, but I just love the way he conducted himself, loved his play on the field, his grit, toughness, intangibles, not to mention dude went out there and won a lot of games at Mississippi State. At one point had them as the number one team in the country. Like I loved Dak Prescott in college. And so back when I was a Cowboys fan, I was thrilled when the Cowboys took him in 2016. Obviously, he had, a great rookie season, won Rookie of the Year. Stuck with Dak. And make no mistake about it, I want the Cowboys to beat the Eagles. I don't want to get that twisted. But, man, notice who's doing all the talking and who's just laying in the weeds. That stuff matters. And trust me, Jalen Hurts ain't going to say nothing about this. He knows what's going on. We'll put it that way. And he'll remember this come Christmas Eve. But for us, for me, for you guys, it's great for us. It's more content for the show. It's more drama added to what should be one of the biggest games in the NFL season. Hey, I love it for content purposes. No question about it. What I don't love is Jerry Jones calling out Dak Prescott. And that's our next topic. So Jerry Jones was on Dallas radio. Not sure which station's on. He does numerous radio hits. I think he does 2, in some cases 3 shows a week. But he was asked about, are you concerned about Dak Prescott's interception issue? Because Dak Prescott in the last, Dak's been back for 6 games. Has it been 6? 7 games. Dak Prescott's been back since the thumb injury for 7 games. And he's thrown 8 interceptions. It's like, okay, that's a little bit of a problem. Well, Jerry Jones was asked about this. And he said, quote, interception concerns can neutralize great execution and effort in other parts of the game. The definition of aggressiveness doesn't have to include turnovers. It doesn't have to include that. Aggressive does not. I do like aggressiveness without turnovers. Yeah, I like cookies without the sugar, but that's what comes with them. So to Jerry's initial point about aggressiveness, with Cooper Rush, when Cooper Rush was in at quarterback for 5 games, a lot of the narrative around the NFL was, well, Cooper Rush doesn't turn the ball over. And up until the Philadelphia game, he didn't turn the ball over, played clean football. But that's in large part because the offense was severely limited with number 10 at quarterback. Was it, decent? Yeah, sure it was. They were putting up, 20, 24 points a game. They were fine. But the big play wasn't there. They didn't, by the way, rightfully so. Props to Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore. They never asked Cooper Rush not to do things. They never asked him to do things that he wasn't comfortable or capable of doing. Right? No tight window throws down the seams. Not taking shots down the sideline to CeeDee Lamb or to Michael Gallup. Didn't ask him to do things that he wasn't capable of doing. You didn't turn the ball over. But once you ran into Philadelphia and you were forced to make those throws, then he did turn the ball over, and he had to be aggressive. Cooper Rush didn't have a choice. He had to be aggressive in order to keep the Cowboys in that game. And so for Dak Prescott, I'll address the interceptions individually just a second, but the aggressiveness factor. At some point, you have to. What I love about this, and it bothers me, man, it bothers me the double standard when we critique Dak that we don't use for other quarterbacks who, by the way, are better than Dak. Take Josh Allen, for example. Since week 7, which that's when Dak came back, week 7 against the Detroit Lions. Since week 7, Mr. Josh Allen is 28th in passer rating. He's had the second most turnovers with 9. His completion percentage ranks 30th. Yards per pass ranks 22nd. Pass yards per game ranks 16th. Passing touchdowns 9th. Ranks 14th. His passer rating, by the way, the only quarterbacks he is better than in that department since week 7 is Matt Ryan, who was benched, Kenny Pickett, who's a rookie, Davis Mills, who leads the 1-win Houston Texans, and Zach Wilson, who was benched. But we have not said a word about Josh Allen. Now, does that mean Josh Allen is not a great quarterback? Absolutely not. My opinion, Josh Allen's the second or third best quarterback in football. To me, the big three is Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. You can rank them however you want, but I think Josh Allen is no question in that group. But we tend to be harder on the great players than we are on the middle-of-the-pack guys. We're supposed to be harder on LeBron James than we are on Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown's a really good NBA player, all-star. He's not LeBron. Even in this advanced stage of LeBron's career, we're going to be tougher in our criticism of LeBron than we are of a guy like Jalen Brown. But that doesn't apply to Dak. Maybe it's because he's the quarterback of the Cowboys. We understand the criticism that comes with that. Tony Romo, of all people, would know, right? But to the interceptions individually, if you look at all of them since he came back, so he went turnover free against the Lions, was a little rusty in that game. He missed 5 games, so Dak did no big explosive plays down the field. The next game against Chicago Bears, Dak threw 1 interception. That was to Eddie Jackson of the Chicago Bears. Right down the middle of the field, CeeDee Lamb stopped his route because he saw Eddie Jackson coming out of the peripheral vision. It's like, oh crap, I'm about to get either smoked or I might fumble here. CeeDee Lamb stopped his route. Eddie Jackson picked up the pass. That's 1 interception. 2 weeks later, after the bye against the Green Bay Packers, CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz, there was a miscommunication between the two on the route. Dak threw the pass to where CD was supposed to be. It got picked in the end zone. Next interception, also against the Green Bay Packers. He throws to the spot where CD is supposed to be. CD stops his route. Interception. 2 weeks later against the New York Giants. Now, this is the first interception in this stretch that is 100% Dak's fault. 100%. He's throwing a comeback route left sideline to Michael Gallup. He's trying to draw pass interference. Not really sure what Dak was trying to do. Ill-advised throw. Shouldn't have made it. Interception. Totally on Dak. But the second one, miscommunication. CeeDee Lamb runs the incorrect route. Dak throws a pick against the Giants later in that game. The next game is the Colts. CD falls in his route. He slips, falls down, gets picked off by Stephon Gilmore of the Indianapolis Colts. Last week, throws right to Noah Brown. Right in his hands. Goes right through his hands, tip drill, interception. And the second pick on Sunday against Houston, it's his worst interception maybe of his career. I don't know what Dak was doing, trying to force the football into a contested area where Dalton Schultz was. Bad mistake, bad turnover. I know his arm got hit. Ball wasn't going to get there anyway, even if his arm wasn't hit. Interception. But my issue is we praise other quarterbacks for being gunslingers, taking shots down the field. We love Mahomes and we love Allen. We love, what's his name? Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers a little high in the interception list. He's taking some shots down the field in the latter half of the season. We love the gunslingers, but when Dak does it, it's an issue. Because of the way Dak plays, and I'll get to maybe why Dak's, the interception numbers are high, not just in terms of how they happen, but the reasons that they're happening. For every interception Dak throws because of his aggressive style of play, you get 98-yard drives to win the game. Or you get perfect throws right down the middle to guys like Schultz, throws up the sideline to CeeDee Lamb, or even in some cases on a wheel route to Tony Pollard. We hold Dak to a standard that I'm not sure Patrick Mahomes can meet. We do. Does that mean Dak's perfect? Of course not. Is he being at times a little careless with the ball? Yes. I mean, there's been plays that have not been interceptions where Dak has been a little reckless with the football. But I was thinking about this I've been thinking about this for the last couple of weeks. I'm the number one Dak fan on earth. Wears hat like every third show, maybe more than that. But I was thinking about this. Is Dak Prescott playing uncharacteristically careless football because he knows he has to fit the ball into tighter windows? Because CeeDee Lamb can separate, but oftentimes there's a miscommunication between he and Dak. It's gotten better in recent weeks, but, it's still there to a certain degree. Everybody else, Michael Gallup struggles to separate at times. Noah Brown really struggles to separate down the field. Dalton Schultz is all he's good for is a little 5-yard, safety route, which is fine on a 2nd and 4. But if you need a big play on 3rd and 13, he's not a tight end like a Kelsey, a Kittle, or a Waller, an Andrews, a Gesicki that can make a play. He's not in that level of tight ends. Is Dak Prescott forcing the football because he knows he has to? So ultimately what that comes down to is Dak and the coaching staff, in particular Mike McCarthy, Kellen Moore, to put Dak in positions and for Dak to put himself in positions to where he doesn't have to force the football. Dak deserves the blame. I mean, you can't say all of the interceptions are his fault. You also can't say all the interceptions are not his fault. But being efficient with the football, being not safe with the football, because that can only get you so far. You can't win a Super Bowl with Cooper Rush. You can win games, you can't win a Super Bowl with Cooper Rush. It's hard to win championships with guys who cannot and do not push the ball down the field. Dak does. There's little things you got to correct. And then lastly, and this is what bothers me. This is really what bothers me at the end of the day about Jerry Jones. He doesn't get it, does he? So, Jerry's going after Dak and the interceptions and things of that nature. Here's my question. He's the owner and the general manager. He's not the coach. He's not a player. What is he hoping to accomplish? What is calling out his quarterback for his turnover issue? What does that accomplish? Because if you watch Dak Prescott's press conference after the Houston Texans game, you'd have thought the Cowboys lost. Dak was brutal, like uncharacteristically brutal on himself after the game. Like, I mean, really hard on himself. Like, hey, Dak, like, hey, listen, you got to clean that up. But hey, listen, that's part of the reason I love Dak, though, is because he's not a Zach Wilson, not taking blame after a loss or a Baker Mayfield. What is Jerry hoping to accomplish through these comments? It's just like earlier this year when Dak went down against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, injured his thumb. Jerry Jones did his press conference, as all other owners do, right? After games. He did his press conference before the head coach, Mike McCarthy, did. It was Jerry who gave Dak's diagnosis and timeline to return before McCarthy. As a matter of fact, they asked McCarthy in the press conference, they said, Dak's going to be out, I don't know what it was. Was it 6 to 8 weeks? I think was the timeline. Dak Prescott's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. And Mike McCarthy was like, yeah, that's the first I've heard of it. The power dynamic in Dallas is the biggest reason that this team has not gone to an NFC championship game in 27 years. They've had the quarterbacks. Mike McCarthy, though I'm not a fan, has done a pretty solid job this year. I mean, is he a genius coach? Not even, absolutely not. But he is the first coach since Barry Switzer in 95, 96. And, Switzer wasn't a great coach. He was a decent coach. To lead the Cowboys to back-to-back 10-win seasons. And let's just say these Cowboys were not near as talented as those Cowboys of the 90s. So, and by the way, doing it with Cooper Rush the first part of the season. Hats off to Mike McCarthy. Like, he deserves credit for that. But it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. I don't care if it's Tom frickin' Brady. It doesn't matter who the coach is. It's the power dynamic that has always been the issue. It is the biggest reason. I would go so far as to say, and I don't use this word much, but the only reason that the Cowboys 90s dynasty was not as near as great as we thought it could have been. Because obviously he did fire Jimmy Johnson after the second consecutive Super Bowl in 1994. It's my issue. Not to mention Jerry has, for whatever reason, always been hard on Dak. I don't know if it's because Dak has never really cozied up to Jerry the way Tony Romo did. I don't know if it's why because Dak has kept Jerry at kind of an arm's length. But what is he hoping to accomplish? That's my question. But it is what it is. That's why the Cowboys, I don't believe this season are going to win a playoff game. They usually don't win playoff games. I think they're 4-11 since the last Super Bowl championship in the playoffs in their last 15 playoff games. Power dynamic. That's always been the biggest problem. But we'll see what happens moving forward. By the way, in other Cowboys news, they signed T.Y. Hilton the other day. I like it. Like, I know there's some people that are like, it's T.Y. Hilton. He's late in his career. I think it's a solid move. I think he's an upgrade over Noah Brown. He's definitely an upgrade over James Washington. T.Y. Hilton is a good number 3 receiver. As a matter of fact, on Sundays, I'm not so sure he's better than Michael Gallup. So I'm fine with the signing. I would rather have T.Y. Hilton, who can play today, than Odell, who still isn't healthy. So it's a solid signing by the Cowboys. I have no issue with it. I've seen a lot of people criticize it. I think it's a solid move. But enough the Cowboys today. Sorry to put you all through that. 30 minutes of Dallas Cowboys talk. Probably won't be doing this much, at least until the playoffs. In particular, January the 16th of 2023, when I will be on this show at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time, talking about a playoff loss by the Dallas Cowboys. Until then, we won't give you that much. Moving on now to, actually got a couple comments here. Of course, Alex Johnson said he loved it. Of course he did. Of course he did. Of course. Listen, but again, by the way, folks, please check out their podcast, Cowboys Camp In podcast. Very entertaining. I was able to be a guest on their pregame show before they faced the Los Angeles Rams back in week 5. Had a blast. Love those guys. And they just did two vlogs. They went to 2 Cowboys games in a week. They went to the Vikings game in Minnesota, which was obviously a total beatdown, 40-3 by the Cowboys on the Minnesota Vikings. And then the Thanksgiving Day game against the New York Giants. So check that stuff out. Check all their amazing stuff out. If you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, that's your spot to go. If you're not a Dallas Cowboys fan, check their stuff out anyway, because it's great stuff. Now, for the Green Bay Packers, I was really starting to get, and you guys know I'm very much a Packers skeptic on this show, but I was really optimistic about this team's future a couple weeks ago. When they lost to Philadelphia on Sunday Night Football, they only lost by 7 to a team that's now sitting at 12-1. They very much competed. They scored 33 points on an excellent defense, despite the fact that their star quarterback went down in the third quarter. And I said at that time, what were the Packers then? They were 4-8 at that point. I said, okay, you're 4-8. Bad news. You're not going to make the playoffs. I hate to tell you that. You're not going to make the playoffs. I have a hard time seeing this team, because they did beat Chicago the next week. They were supposed to beat Chicago, but I have a hard time seeing them win 5 games and getting in. And even if you get in, they're going to get smoked by, whether it be, I think Minnesota. The reason Minnesota beat them in week 1, they match up far better with Green Bay than the other way around. If they face Minnesota, I think they get beat. If they face the Niners, they're going to get destroyed, right? So Packers aren't going anywhere in the playoffs, even if they were to miraculously sneak in. And what I always say, and it's to give an example in politics. I'm not going to name names or anything, but the biggest one, not the biggest, there's a lot of issues I have with political candidates these days, but one of the biggest issues I have with political candidates is, especially nowadays, I don't know if it's because of the rise of social media and whatever. My question to a lot of these folks who are running, what is your plan? Because some of them just flat out don't detail a plan. They just align themselves with this president or this senator or whatever. What are you going to do to help your country? Like that's always been my issue. And for the Green Bay Packers, it's sort of the same question. What is your plan? What is your intention? You're 5-8. Aaron Rodgers is going to start on Monday night against the Los Angeles Rams. My guess is Green Bay probably wins. I get Baker Mayfield came out that big game. Green Bay's a better team today than the beat-up Rams. They're at home. They should win that game. But then you're 6-8. Then you got Miami on the road. I like the Dolphins in that game. They'll be a little desperate by that point because very good chance they're going to lose to Buffalo. So Miami's playoff hopes will kind of be in the air. They got to win that game. Then they got Minnesota. Look at Kirk Cousins' numbers against the Packers. Dude loves to play the Packers because his numbers and his winning percentage are both excellent. And then they play the Detroit Lions, who, I don't know if you noticed, the Lions score a lot of points. Green Bay doesn't. So they could easily lose their last 3 games this season. Don't think they will, but they could. So my question is, get the most that you can out of this season. I say that because a Packers insider, let me get his name. I want to get his name right. Jason Wild, who's a very well-respected Packers reporter. He said the other day, quote, "I had a really great conversation with Jordan Love on Friday afternoon. I think he very clearly, even though he wouldn't flat out say it, he does not want to sit for another year. So if we get to year 4 and Rodgers does come back, I am fairly confident that he will seek a trade." And for that reason, for that report, again, I go back to what I said a couple weeks ago. Just start Jordan Love the rest of the season. Because he was bad in his only start last year against the Chiefs. But he came in relief of Aaron Rodgers and looked pretty good. Was moving around well, had a live arm, was accurate, had the Packers in position to possibly steal that game. He looked pretty good. You have one of the biggest assets in the NFL in Aaron Rodgers. You think Seattle got a haul for Russell Wilson back when we thought Russell Wilson was good. Can you imagine what the Packers would get for Aaron Rodgers? You don't think a team like the Titans or, dare I say, the 49ers? One of these teams, who's to say the Miami Dolphins? Hey, the Dolphins went after Deshaun Watson and Tom Brady. Who's to say they won't go after Aaron Rodgers? The way Tua's played, if he continues this low level of play to finish the season. A lot of teams out there need a quarterback, and a lot of teams are willing to give up whatever it takes to get a quarterback. So the Packers will have all the leverage. But until then, see what you have in the kid. If he's good, great. We've got our franchise quarterback, and we can build around him on a rookie deal. If not, okay. Well, good news is we'll get a high pick. We're only going to be a 5-6 win team. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. We could possibly keep Aaron, trade Love, because again, a lot of teams looking for a quarterback. A lot of teams out there will take Jordan Love. Get assets, build around Aaron. But no, they're going to start Aaron, and then we have no clue whether or not Jordan Love's the guy or not. That is my problem with the Packers. It almost makes me hope that the Rams beat them on Monday so that the last 3 games we see, okay, we get a 3-game sample size. It's little, but we get a sample size. What is Jordan Love? Because it's year 3 now. I always say the Bill Parcells example for evaluating quarterbacks. Year 1, it's a developmental year. Not going to be too hard on him. Year 2, you need to see a steady improvement from year 1. And if by year 3, you still are not confident that they're the guy, then you move on. If Jordan Love still can't play by year 3, then you move on. I don't know what the Packers' plan is. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish or get out of the season, because even if they were to sneak in the playoffs, folks, they can't compete with me. We got a lot of questions about Minnesota. Minnesota's clearly better than Green Bay. So are the Niners. You've seen the Packers the last few times they matched up against the Niners. Hasn't ended well, especially in the playoffs. Okay? They cannot beat Philly in a playoff game. They can't beat Dallas, I don't believe, in a playoff game. I know they beat them earlier this season. That was a homecoming game for McCarthy. A lot of emotions. Dallas coming off a lot of stuff that factored in this game that wouldn't factor into a playoff game. They cannot beat a team like, I would say, even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Seattle Seahawks. Heck, they barely beat Tampa when Tampa was missing like their whole receiving core. Like Russell Gage was their number one receiver. Get something out of this season. See what you have in the kid. If he's not good, okay, you stick with Aaron. You trade Love. You build around Aaron, and it's 2 more years of trying to win a Super Bowl with a Hall of Fame level quarterback. I don't get what the Packers are trying to do. I really don't. And by the way, Aaron hasn't been all that. He hasn't shown a whole lot of pushback to the idea of starting Jordan Love. Matter of fact, I remember Aaron doing a press conference a couple weeks ago that he would be interested in having those conversations. Should the organization or the coaching staff, Matt LaFleur, should they bring that conversation to him? I don't know what they're doing. I don't know. Of course, then again, a lot of moves the Packers have made the last few years, starting with drafting Jordan Love to start with, has really confused me. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But at the end of the day, I question how the Packers are doing business. It just doesn't make sense. So, look, I still think Aaron is one of the better quarterbacks we have in this league. I think a lot of it is the fact that his receiving core is bad. His receiving core is the biggest reason I said the Packers would not make the playoffs. I mean, Christian Watson has looked pretty good in recent weeks. He's really developed into one of those guys you can trust. But outside of that, I mean, an old Randall Cobb and Romeo Dobbs, come on now, like that's not going to win playoff games. Even in the limited NFC in terms of contending teams, that's not going to win any playoff games. Having Devontae Adams, you couldn't win any playoff games last year, so you definitely can't this year. And the NFC was significantly better a year ago than it is now. Then again, like I said, a lot of moves the Packers have made has been very curious at best. But we do have a game tonight, and it's a very big game. So the Thursday night slate has been a little disappointing this season. I felt bad the most for is Al Michaels. I know he signed a big deal with Amazon and, obviously pairing it with Kirk Herbstreit to do these Thursday night games. But Al Michaels is too great of a broadcaster to be doing Panthers-Falcons or Bears-Commander. Like, come on. Al Michaels should be doing Chiefs-Ravens or Cowboys-Eagles or, Buccaneers and Packers. Like, those are Al Michaels games. Like, come on. But tonight is a different story. It's an NFC West battle between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. The Niners are favored -3.5. So here's what I'm looking at. This is kind of a desperation game for the Seahawks. Because when you look at the playoff standings right now, as it stands today, in the NFC, should the playoffs start today, Seattle be out. They'd be a half game back of the New York Giants. Giants are 7-5-1. Seahawks are 7-6. This is a huge game for Seattle. It looks like Kenneth Walker is going to be back in the lineup, which is huge for them. He's one of the premier running backs in the league, even as a rookie. Not to mention for the Niners, no Deebo Samuel, who thankfully avoided serious injury against the Buccaneers on Sunday, but he's going to be out till at least the end of the regular season. And Brock Purdy, Sturdy Purdy as I called him, looks like he's dealing with some sort of oblique injury. He was questionable up until this morning when it was announced that he's going to play tonight. But Brock Purdy's going to be playing beat up. We know Seattle is still one of the hardest places to play. Man, Seattle's a hard place to play. I anticipate the Niners are going to get off to a nice little start. Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell and company. Great offensive line. Great defense. But I've always had, there's two theories I have in the NFL. The embarrassment theory and the desperation theory. The latter comes into effect a lot later in the seasons when you've got teams that are kind of on the fringe just trying to get into the playoffs who need wins. Because if you look at the Seattle Seahawks, they got to win this game tonight. Because if not, they'll drop to 7-7, and their next 3 games are going to be against the Chiefs at Arrowhead. That's a loss. Home against the Jets. That's a tough one. And you got the Rams at home. Like, you got to win this game. Like, for Seattle, just trying to get out of here 2-2. Finish the season 2-2, and you probably get in the playoffs. They beat the Niners last year with Russell Wilson, by the way. Despite the Seahawks having a disappointing season due to a lot of injuries, I'm going to go with the upset. I think the Seattle Seahawks win this game 24-20 over the San Francisco 49ers. Geno Smith had a bad game on Sunday against the Panthers. I anticipate he'll bounce back. I anticipate that the Seahawks will be able to, again, if there's any coach that can match Kyle Shanahan, it's Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's seen everything in this league. So I anticipate the Seahawks will get a good running game, put Geno Smith in positions to succeed. Seahawks win this game over the San Francisco 49ers by a final score of 24-20. I think it's going to be a really, really exciting game. By the way, again, I'll predict Week 15 in the NFL tomorrow's show. Some fascinating matchups. We got a triple header on Saturday on the NFL Network. Colts, Vikings, Ravens, Browns, and Dolphins, Bills. So, then Sunday, Cowboys, Jaguars is a fascinating game. Jaguars are not out of the race for the AFC South, especially the way Tennessee's playing. Steelers, Panthers, we wouldn't have thought would have been an interesting game, but impossibly, Carolina controls their own destiny to win the NFC South because Tampa Bay plays the Bengals. If Tampa loses, the Panthers win. The Panthers are in the playoffs. They're in as the standings would look like on Monday, but they control their own destiny. Patriots, Raiders, Josh McDaniels against his old team. What else we got? Oh, Giants, Commanders is a huge game for playoff ramifications. That's the Sunday night game. What else we got? Titans, Chargers. Again, Chargers are more desperate than the Titans, considering the fact that they're not going to win their division. Titans are up 2 games in theirs. But there's some fascinating matchups. Cardinals, Broncos, but no, I'm just kidding. That's a terrible game. No, that's 7 combined wins for the Cardinals, the Broncos. By the way, prayers up to Kyler Murray. Obviously, he suffered a torn ACL very early in the game against the Patriots. Prayers for a speedy recovery for him. Cardinals are in some real trouble right now in terms of whether or not that they can get back to what they were even a year ago. Cliff Kingsbury is in all likelihood gone after the season. Steve Keim, who, by the way, prayers up to him. He's dealing with some health issues. He had to take a leave of absence, but his job is on the line. Kyler's coming off of a major injury. This roster, it doesn't look anywhere near a Super Bowl contending roster, even a playoff contending roster. And they're 4-9 today, folks. I don't know where the Cardinals go from here, but it's going to be an interesting Week 15 in the NFL. Before we get out of here, usually during the football season, because I do a show Monday, Thursday, Friday, and at the end of every show, there's usually an upcoming game, whether it be that night or during the weekend. And I predict the game, and I end the show. Today is a little different. I just wanted to just give me 2-3 minutes on this, because it's a topic that is really, really near and dear to my heart, and something I care deeply about. So I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the passing of Twitch, the dancer, Stephen Boss. What's his name? He was well known on the Ellen show, and he died by suicide. Now, obviously, we're going to learn more about whatever's going on. Certainly give the family and loved ones space to grieve. But I just want to take this opportunity to say that mental health is so important. And when we talk about whenever an athlete, and I'm going to sort of tie this to sports, whenever an athlete, I always use this example, when an athlete breaks their leg, okay, you go to the doctor, you if you have to have surgery, whatever, if they tear their ACL or they, hurt their shoulder, whatever, go to the doctor, get the diagnosis, and take the next steps. And too often we don't do that enough with mental health. I am in no way, shape, or form, by the way, just hope this is not misconstrued, blaming Twitch's death on him. Okay, like he's obviously going through something that none of us can fathom or explain in order for him to take his own life. But I just want everybody out there to know, man, that if you're dealing with anything, please, please, please go get help. You matter. Your life matters. You got people that care about you. And, if there's anybody, I'm going to repeat a phrase that Patrick Brown used in a statement and a sentiment that Patrick Brown used, host of the Chaotic Sports Podcast, by the way, here on the Grid, who was on my show 3 weeks ago, day after Thanksgiving. And I thought he summed it up perfectly because he gave a message about mental health. And he said that, if nobody today has told you, whether you're watching or listening to the show, nobody today's told you that they love you, then let me be the first. I love you. You matter. And if there's anything that you're dealing with, just know it is okay to not be okay. Go get the help you need. Talk to a therapist. Whatever you need to do to address the problem. Because we do it all the time. If we're physically sick, if we've got the flu, if we've got just a cold, we're going to take antibiotics or we're going to do whatever the doctor prescribes us to take, or take whatever steps that they want us to take. If we're injured, we take those next steps. I just hope that, and the stigma is being lifted, but I hope that it continues to be that way, and we continue to get the message out. It's okay to not be okay. Get the help you need. And also, last thing, I want to use this opportunity to give a big shout out to the athletes that have used their platform to speak about this important subject. Guys and gals, by the way, men and women. Dak Prescott, Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles, Michael Phelps, DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Love, countless others. Solomon Thomas, who's been a huge advocate of mental health. I believe he plays for the Raiders. It's just been unbelievable on this topic. So just this is something that really, really means a lot to me. And if you yourself have not been impacted by mental health struggles, I think we can all say we've known somebody who it has. And man, it's okay to not be okay. There's nothing wrong with you if you are dealing with something. It's just it's part of being human. So please go get help. Please. And with that is all the time we have for today's show. Alexander Johnson, great show, my dude. I appreciate that, Alex. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving It Up Live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern at 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. Show won't be live. I'll be pre-recording it, but I'll be reacting to tonight's game, giving my Week 15 NFL predictions, the Saturday games, the Sunday games. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Also, be sure to like, share, comment. Take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button. It helps the channel grow a lot. And also, head over to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Network, of which I'm a part of, as well as my man, Alexander Johnson of the Cowboys Can Fan Podcast, along with everybody else on that show. Barry Grant Jr., All Even Podcasts. All right. Ryan Flowers, Clutch Sports Talk. Alfred Parsard Jr., Rocket Fuel Jets Podcast. Patrick Brown, Chaotic Sports Podcast. Go check out our amazing content on YouTube. Like, share, comment, and subscribe over there. And that is where you can listen to my show and all of our shows on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. Have a great evening, everybody. Please continue to stay safe out there. Please check in on your loved ones. Tell them you love them. God bless you all. Peace out. Y'all better quit disrespecting Dak, too. Come on, man. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.